And I don't think the data supports that either. I don't think extremism ever really works that well. I think critical analysis is much more effective, but extremism is a result of all these high emotions that kind of run. And in order for me to get you to even consider what I'm doing with this, these socialist ideas, I gotta really go as far to the left as possible to pull you back. And I don't think it's just weird. It's not healthy. So I think that there are some legitimate questions like, okay, if you have all these, if everything's free, then who's going to pay for everything if everything is free? But you go to Europe, actually, there are a lot of things that are free, and their society hasn't fallen apart. But there are some productivity differences between the U.S. and Europe. The Europeans can't, when it comes to making money, they can't even touch the United States. Like the United States is kind of like this economic gangster that's been through the trenches, that's just ready to fight at any moment. Europeans are kind of like this really polite, civilized guy who, like you punch him in the face, he's not going to hit you back because he's like kind of a little bit of a wimp. And so when you have someone that is as aggressive as a Trump running the United States and he's going around punching everybody in the face, they're not hitting him back. They're like, "Hey, can't we talk about it, old chap?" And he's like, "You punk," right? But I don't like that, right? We know that bullying is not healthy, right? But neither is being a punk, right? So you like that balance, right? Like I'm not a bully, but I'm not a punk, right? And that to me, but I can tell you one thing about Europe, and I go to Europe a couple times a year. I got a daughter that married a melanin deficient man, a very nice melanin deficient man in Denmark, and I fly to Denmark to see her and the kids. And when I go there, let me just tell you this: it's very very safe. I can't say that about every part of Chicago. There's parts of Chicago you really probably shouldn't walk around at nighttime if you ain't from there. Um, it's the educational system is remarkable. All the kids get a good education. You got 40 schools in Chicago where there's not one single child that can read or do math at grade level. That's sick. That's absolutely sick. That if you want to wake up and be mad about something, I don't know why we don't wake up and get mad about that. I think we're just exhausted because there's so many things to be mad about if you're black that we just are like, well, yeah, yeah, yeah. 30% illiteracy rate, or 80% of the kids are not at grade level. That's just part of being black, right? We become normalized to it, right? But I'm personally outraged by it. I think it's absolutely horrible, horrible, and it's not just horrible because it's happening. It's horrible because it's preventable. It's horrible because it's preventable, and it's also horrible because we're choosing that. Again, with Malcolm X saying letting your enemy educate your kids is ridiculous. Why would you do that? The only reason you do that is because everybody else does it, and you're following the crowd, or you're following toxic traditions that were passed down to you, or maybe you've been convinced that you have no other choice. And well, I can't do it. I gotta go. I get it. We got to go to work, but you can play a role in the education of your child. You really can.